How you doing? Justin here. In this lesson today, this is lesson 6 of the Blues Lead Guitar series, and in this lesson we're going to be looking at position 2 of the Minor Pentatonic scale. Now please be sure that you've got your position 1 down and you can use it and you can play your licks and you're ready for position 2 before you get going on this. Much better to be able to play a solo using one position than be able to go up and down lots of positions and not be able to actually use them. So this lesson we're going to talk about position 2, the different fingering options you've got, where the extra little cool notes are, and just a few little tricks around this scale. So let's start by getting into a close-up and make sure that you've got the actual scale up and down correctly. So here we are for position 2 of our A minor pentatonic scale. Now we're going to be starting this one here with our first finger on the 7th fret of the 4th string. And this is the lowest root note. It's really important that you practice these scales starting and finishing on the lowest root note and not the lowest note of the scale. This is because you'll start to hear where the scale comes from and you'll hear the kind of the tonal center, if you like. So we're going to start here with the first finger. Then we've got the 4th finger on the 10th fret. First finger, 7th fret of the 3rd string. 3rd finger, 9th fret, 3rd string. Now I'm going to show you some other options for this later, but for now we're going to do the 1st finger, 8th fret, 2nd string. 3rd finger, 10th fret, 2nd string. 1st finger, 8th fret, 1st string. 3rd finger on the 10th fret of the 1st string. Straight back down that again. First finger, 7th fret, little finger, 10th fret, 2nd finger, 8th fret, and then back up. Making sure that we're starting and finishing on the lowest root note. So now I'm just going to play that just up and down, nice and slow. Now one of the most common fingering issues for this is when we get onto the 2nd string and the 1st string. Now some people think that it's better to use the 2nd and 4th fingers on the notes on the 1st and 2nd strings up here. Now if you're playing in certain circumstances it is better, and if you're doing technical stuff it can be useful as well. So it would be worth practicing sometimes using this fingering, as I'll show you now. I'm just going to show you the top half, if you like, of this scale now. It's going here. Now the advantage of course is that your hand doesn't have to shift any. From here you don't have to go through this slight kind of getting jammed up a little bit in that section. Use 2nd and 4th. So why would you not want to use 2nd and 4th when it appears easier? Well, the reason is because very often you're going to be bending on this note here, which is the 10th fret of the thinnest string. This is a really common note to bend, and we know that bending with your little finger is really hard and not very productive, so you generally want to have your 3rd finger on that spot. It's a really common thing to be using those fingers. So you can see there straight away, and you've got a nice vibrato here using your 3rd finger as well. So occasionally you might want to use your 2nd and 4th fingers there, but generally you want to be using your first and third fingers there for this bit. Now, one of the things that's really important when you're practicing your scales or learning your scales is knowing what notes you can bend and how far you should bend them if you're going to. Now, position 2 is a little bit funny because some of the notes in there are really ones that you kind of have to be a bit careful with your bending on. So, if we look at the first two notes, we're starting of course on the 4th string here. That note that we come to with the little finger is the note C. And this is the third of, or the minor third of, in the key of A. And this is the note that you might remember from our earlier lessons that you might want to put a curl on the note C. Now, you can bend that note, but and you only have to bend it a tone, but because it's A on the 4th string, which is a bit weird, and B, the fact that it's with your little finger, you might find that a little bit awkward to get a bend on. So it's quite an uncommon note to bend, but a very common note to curl, to get. So you might end up doing curls with the little finger, but a very unusual one to bend. If we look at the notes on the next two strings, we've got here the D and the E with the first and third fingers. Now, the note here, the E, if you're going to do a bend on that, you have to bend that a minor third, which means 3 frets higher. So it's quite a big bend, quite an unusual bend as well. So even though that note could have the bend, it would be a minor third, which is quite far. You can bend it a tone later on if you're getting into Dorian mode, but it tends to be an unusual one to bend. But if you're a bit confused there, oh no, Dorian mode, he's using his funny Greek stuff again. So the Dorian mode in the key of A would simply mean that we're using the note F sharp, which is a very cool and funky note to use in an A blues, but not one that I want to get into using just yet. So possible to bend, but unlikely. We get up to the 2nd string. We've got the notes G and A. A, of course, being the root note. Now that note is a very, very dangerous one to bend, because if you don't bend it enough, you're going to get into real horrible notes like the A sharp or B flat, which is possibly the worst note that you could play in a blues. So if you're going to do a bend on this note, on the note A with the 3rd finger on the 2nd string, you have to make sure that you either bend it a tone up to the note B, which gives you a 9th, but it's a little bit of a weird note to bend, to be honest. Bending to the 9th you have to be a bit careful with, or you have to bend it a minor third up to the note C. Which sounds cool, but it's quite a big bend. So those of you that are just starting out on your blues guitar, I'd recommend again, maybe just not doing a bend with that note rather than risking bending a funny one. So possible, but unlikely. Next, on the thinner string, the last string that we're going to look at bending, because we're not really going to talk about bending on the thickest two strings because it's very, very rare. We've got here the notes C and D. Now, if you remember, C is the note that it's very likely we'd put a curl on. So you get a bit of practice here doing a 1st finger curl, which would be their 1st finger on the 8th fret. So just doing a little curl up there, it's like a little quarter tone bend, if you like. Now the other note on the thinner string is the note D with the 3rd finger on the 10th fret, and that's a very good note to bend up a tone. Now I'm going to go through and show you some licks in the next lesson, but to start off with, we want to be playing that scale up and down, just straight up and down, making sure you're using your alternate picking, starting with a down pick of course, and being aware that there's these other fingering options. That's really important, because a lot of the licks are going to use fingers that are kind of the wrong fingers, but remember when it comes to playing your actual solo that the fingering doesn't really matter so much, it's just the notes that matter. And also being aware that that we've only got the really that big bend there on the thinner string with the 3rd finger. That's a good one to bend, and the other ones you have to treat with a little bit of caution. That, you know, it is possible to bend them, but I don't recommend that you start learning to bend them, because they might lead you to a bad place, i.e. bad notes. So next stage for you, make sure you got that scale down, you know where it is, you know the different fingerings, and then I'll see you for the next lesson where we'll learn some licks and actually learn how to use this scale to make up some solos.